In 1996, when 3D graphics were still finding their feet, Sega threw open the doors to a mansion filled with creatures and horrors, and arcade goers willingly stepped inside. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Arcade Economy, the show where we uncover the history and costs to beat of classic arcade games. Last time on the show, we dove into the revolutionary run-and-gun Contra. Today, we're taking a look at Sega's horror classic, The House of the Dead. And we're going to find out just how much it cost to beat this game when it released in 1996. Did these creatures want your cash as much as they wanted your flesh? Let's find out.
Help! Everyone getting killed!
The House of the Dead.
In the mid-90s, Sega was on an absolute tear in the arcade scene. The industry had started to transition heavily from 2D into 3D graphics, and Sega had brought some home runs to the arcades. They'd already blown minds with games like Virtua Fighter 2, Daytona USA, and Virtua Cop, showcasing the variety and raw power of their Model 2 arcade board. By 96, they turned that graphical prowess towards something more visceral. Light gun games were popular arcade hits. Time Crisis and Lethal Enforcers already proved that. Initially, Sega wanted to target an older audience with another police shooter, but were afraid it would compete with their aforementioned game, Virtua Cop. Instead, they opted to turn the game into a horror shooter, and thus, The House of the Dead went into production using the Virtua Cop engine. Sega chose game planner Takashi Oda to direct the project. Oda has cited the 1995 movie Seven as inspiration for the game, and you can clearly see the influence in the game's opening attract mode. For fear that the game may get banned in certain countries due to being too violent, the devs added the option for arcade operators to change the color of the blood to avoid censorship. In September 1996, The House of the Dead was released in Japan, with a worldwide release coming early in the following year. It was an instant classic, becoming one of the best-selling and most notorious light gun games of the time. Earlier in 1996, Capcom also released its inaugural entry to their zombie survival horror game, Resident Evil. The success of both Resident Evil and The House of the Dead sparked a zombie revival in both games and Hollywood at the time. It's even rumored that House of the Dead acted as inspiration for the fast zombie that we would later see in movies like 28 Days Later and the Dawn of the Dead remake. Sega quickly got to work on a port for their 5th generation console, the Sega Saturn, and the port released 2 years after the arcade's release in September 1998. The port included extra game modes and selectable characters with different weapons. Later that same year, Sega released The House of the Dead 2 in arcades, which is still considered to be one of, if not the best game in the series. 1999 saw the franchise's first couple of spin-offs with Typing of the Dead and Zombie Revenge? Yeah, I don't remember this game at all, but apparently it was a 3D run-and-gun beat-em-up released for arcades and Dreamcast. The franchise would return to its roots in 2002 with House of the Dead 3, and again in 2005 with House of the Dead 4, and again in 2018 with House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn. The original House of the Dead got a fantastic remake in 2022, releasing for PC and the 8th and 9th generation consoles. The House of the Dead, especially the earlier games, are known for their, less than stellar voice acting.
Oh no!
To be fair though, when The House of the Dead first released, voice acting in games was still kind of new, outside of a few phrases or lines of dialogue. The game's story follows a paper-thin plot that got expanded upon later thanks to the instruction manual of the Sega Saturn port. The game takes place in Europe when a renowned biochemist and geneticist, Dr. Kurian, has become obsessed with unraveling the very nature of life and death. Kurian was funded by the DBR Corporation and hired a team of scientists to help conduct his experiments at his mansion. As time went on, Dr. Kurian grew mad. His experiments became even more gruesome and inhumane, and after spiraling into insanity, Dr. Kurian unleashed his creatures onto the world with the goal of humanity's ultimate destruction. Now, a couple of side notes here. The game's director, Takashi Oda, insisted that the game's enemies be called creatures rather than zombies, since they were bioengineered. And later in the game, the story would be expanded upon, and we discover that Dr. Kurian was conducting this research so that he could cure his terminally ill son. And that's what kind of drove him to insanity since he couldn't find a cure. The game opens with AMS agent Thomas Rogan receiving a frantic distress call from his fiancée and DBR scientist Sophie Richards, who's trapped inside the now creature-infested mansion. Rogan and his partner G fly to Europe and arrive at the estate to find it completely overrun by Curion's experiments. Almost immediately, they encounter a dying scientist who hands them a journal conveniently containing vital information about Curion's abominations, and more importantly, their weaknesses. Rogan and G enter the mansion to rescue Sophie and the other scientists, contain the outbreak, and put a stop to Dr. Curion.
We won't let you have it your way, Curion.
The House of the Dead is an on-rail shooter with branching or forking paths that supports up to 2 players. Your pistol came with a 6-round magazine, and when you run dry, the game does an almost annoyingly good job of reminding you to point your gun off-screen and shoot to reload.
Reload!
Now, every time you took damage, whether it's from a creature's melee, a projectile, or by accidentally shooting one of the helpless scientists you were trying to save, you'd lose a point of health. Lose all of your health, and you'd be met with the continue screen demanding more quarters to get back in the fight. First aid packs would restore a point of health and were scattered throughout the mansion. Some were hidden within breakable objects, while others were directly awarded by thankful scientists you managed to rescue.
Thank you.
And speaking of those scientists, rescuing them was key, not just for your conscience, but because you would also earn additional health at the end of each level based on how many scientists you saved. Hitting certain breakables could also reveal special bonus items, which offered a quick score boost. For me, House of the Dead is one of the most replayable games in the arcade. Not just because of how fun it is, and it is a lot of fun, but because of its enemy variety and the different forking paths that you have. Sure, you did have your slow undead, but then you had the fast ones, the ones that wielded axes, the ones that would leap at you from nowhere. Every encounter left you having to strategize on the fly. Do I go for the headshot on the nearest threat, or try to clear out the horde first? And those branching pathways kept things fresh. At certain points you'd save a scientist, or clear a path, and the game would send you down a different route. This offered replayability and making you feel like your actions had consequences. It was a genius move to encourage multiple playthroughs. Every playthrough feels slightly different and would leave you wanting to find the different paths that you may have missed before. So yes, while the House of the Dead is on rails, the game feels less predetermined when you're able to open up new pathways. It also encourages you to do better in your next playthrough in a way that doesn't feel as punishing as some other arcade games. Your score was something to keep an eye on too, not just for bragging rights, but also because it would give you different endings depending on how many points you received throughout your playthrough. While you racked up points for every enemy you killed, landing headshots netted you additional points, rewarding your accuracy. Rescuing hostages wasn't just good for your karma, it also added a niche chunk of bonus points. Now, the strategy I played for most of the game was trying to take out the closest creature and then taking out the rest afterwards. Unless, of course, there was a scientist in distress, then that became my main focus. Being a little patient in my shots too gave me more mileage in my ammo. It allowed me to hit more headshots and take out creatures more efficiently, rather than just completely unloading my 6 rounds and then reloading. And speaking of reloading, I also tried to either count out loud or count in my head my 6 shots so that I would know exactly when to reload. Sure, the game does this great job of screaming at you and telling you to reload, but I found it a lot easier to play by instinctively reloading rather than reactionarily reloading. The game is played in 4 chapters: Tragedy, Revenge, Truth, and the House of the Dead. At the end of each chapter is a boss battle, and thanks to that journal from the scientist at the beginning, you'll know where almost every boss's weakness is. And something that I found interesting was that the bosses in most House of the Dead games are all named after major arcana tarot cards. The first boss you'll encounter is Chariot, an armored, hulking, axe-wielding behemoth. His weak spot is a red dot on the right side of his chest, and landing shots here will cancel his attack animations. Once he gets down to about a quarter of his health, he'll go into his second form and shed his armor. He actually becomes even easier after this, since you can shoot him almost anywhere on his body and it will do damage. The second boss battle is against Hanged Man, and is one of the most frustrating bosses in the game. His weakness is his torso, and for the first half of his life meter, he'll remain stationary while ordering bats to attack you. Your best bet is to just take out the bats and then chip away at Hanged Man's health. His second phase sees him becoming very evasive by flying all over the screen. He'll rush in to attack you with his claws, and you'll need to land a few shots in order to stagger him. In his final phase, Hanged Man will knock you off the roof, causing you to finish off the fight clinging to the mansion's exterior. In my opinion, he's not as hard to hit in Phase 3 as he is in Phase 2, simply because he'll attack you in a linear fashion. The third boss is a giant spider named Hermit, and its weak point is its head, which it will spend a good portion of the fight blocking. In Hermit's first phase, it'll crawl up quickly and attack you. You'll need to land several shots on its weak point to stagger it, or it will wind up taking some of your lives. When Hermit gets to about a third of the way through its health bar, it'll start blocking its face and firing web balls at you. I tried to shoot the web balls, which should take most of your ammo, and then quick reload to shoot Hermit in the face and keep it at bay. When Hermit is approaching you while blocking its face, reload your gun so you have a full clip, and then unload into it the moment it moves its legs away. Defeating Hermit is mostly about timing and patience. In the final chapter, there is a small boss rush where you'll have to defeat both Chariot and Hanged Man again. After that, you'll continue to shoot your way through the mansion's secret laboratory before confronting Dr. Curian.
I must admit, I really respect your consistency.
Curian will then unleash his masterpiece, Magician, onto the world, and upon being released, Magician immediately destroys Dr. Curian, good job, before breaking free from the lab. Magician's weakness is unknown, but if I had to guess, I'd say aim at its pulsating arms and legs. Magician will quickly slide left and right across the screen, and then follow up with tossing fireballs. I tried my best to shoot down the fireballs first before attacking Magician, but this boss leaves you little time to attack and is much harder than the rest. In his second phase, he'll zip across the screen and then zip directly at you. I found that aiming for his left arm would both deal damage and destroy the fireball when hit at just the right time. Then, in his final phase, Magician will power up and toss 12 fireballs into the sky. You'll have to shoot down every one of them if you want to avoid damage, which is a little hard to do as a single player. During this phase, you'll only be able to hit him as he's powering up. At the end of the game, you'll be treated to one of 3 endings depending on how many points you racked up. Scoring under 62,000 points leads to the most underwhelming ending, which is just a long shot of the mansion. Scoring under 62,000 points with the last number being a 0 will result in the mansion doors opening to reveal that Sophie had succumbed to her wounds and turned into a zombie, creature. And the best and canon ending happens when you score 62,000 points or more, which results in Sophie returning alive and thanking you.
Thank you.
And now, it's time to answer the question, how much did I spend to beat The House of the Dead? As per usual, I play these games on an emulator, and I set up a counter to increase every time I hit the insert coin button. I play all these games on their default settings, so for The House of the Dead, that means medium difficulty, and it was 50 cents per play. Now, a quick side note, I did play this game using my Sinden light gun. It is the first game in the series that I played using the gun. The gun did work phenomenally, and I did an unboxing on this gun a few videos ago, so I will link that in the description for anyone who is interested in watching that. Now, completing the game took me about 32 minutes, and in the end, I spent $17.50. Now, in 1996, $17.50 would feel like spending $35.65 today. So this game wasn't cheap. It was one of the more expensive games that I played, and playing per minute factors out to about 54 cents per minute. And that's one of the highest per minute games I've played thus far. I'm sure with enough practice or playing with a buddy, I'd be able to get this number way down. For the bosses, I spent 50 cents on Chariot and $1.50 on both Hanged Man and Hermit, and I spent $2.50 on Magician. So that brings my boss total to $6, which I found wasn't really too expensive considering some of the other games I've played where the bosses really took all of my money. But now, let's bust out the Predatory game scale to determine just how predatory The House of the Dead was. Now, The House of the Dead does require some skill, speed, and patience. It is a game that I actively went back to after beating because I had so much fun, and I wanted to see how many more scientists I could save or how many different pathways I could open up. Does that make this game predatory? I don't know. It definitely would have got more of my money if I were playing this in the arcade, but it didn't really feel as punishing as some of the other games or as frustrating. I actively was having a good time, which is why I wanted to go back to it. And I can't really say that about some other games that I've reviewed. As seen in my boss battle metrics, the bosses played pretty fair and probably would have been even easier with 2 players. I think where the game really gets your money is with overwhelming you with enemies or projectiles on screen, and to me that's only a slight unfair difficulty. There are some punitive game mechanics, like not having iron sights or crosshairs on screen, so you kind of have to shoot to find your aim. It's not always 100% accurate, but if my memory serves me correct, this is kind of how it worked in the arcade as well. So all that being said, and since I'm constantly looking for ways to change this content and make my videos better, this is actually the first game that I'm going to use an equation to figure out what the predatory score is. And factoring into that equation is the game's overall cost per minute, punitive game mechanics, AI difficulty, cheating by the AI, the one more try appeal, and overall enjoyment or value for money. I tested this with some of the other games that I did, and it got similar scores to what I was around, so I know that this works. So I will include this in the description of this video for anyone who would like to see the equation that I'm using, as well as what numbers I put in for House of the Dead. Throwing this into the new and ever-improving Predatory game scale, the House of the Dead received a final score of a 6 out of 10.
Oh no!
And a 9 out of 10 on the fun scale. If you'd like to play House of the Dead today, like I said, there is a remake that came out in 2022 that is out for Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox consoles, and I'll leave a link to that in the description of my video. Next time on Arcade Economy, we're sticking with the rail shooter genre and jumping into 1993's Jurassic Park. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean a great deal to me if you could give it a big thumbs up. Join me in my Discord for exclusive polls on videos I will be featuring next. And let me know in the comments some things that you would like to see as well. As always, thank you for your support, and I hope you see me on my next video.